And we are so grateful to everyone here, whether you are a sister, associate, or partner in mission. We thank you for all the ways that you extend the mission of the Sisters of St. Joseph, by the way you are here in your work, and by the way that you are with one another. You know, our constitutions have a line that says, our name, Sisters of St. Joseph, reminds us to serve others with the same care and concern that Joseph showed Jesus and Mary. And I think as for all of us who work at this mother house, who live at this mother house, I think we experience from one another that same great care and concern that Joseph showed. You show it so well, and we are so grateful. And so we're also grateful for all those who have prepared this day. We thank Clayton and Marvin and Denise for our snacks, and Carlos for the care of the dining room. Here's Marvin, give him a little hand. And Sisters Ellen and Kathy and Denise and Carlos. A round of applause for all of them. It takes a lot of people to have a day like this so happy and so celebratory. And so it's a great day to celebrate our mission of unity. And certainly all of us gathered here right now are a great sign of unity. And I want to thank Sister Dolores Clerico for preparing our prayer, and for our guests who are with us today, who will be part of our presentations. So we really look forward to a great day, from morning right till night. And so I'd now like to invite Sister Dolores to come up. And thank you so much, Sister Dolores.
Thanks, Sam. Thank you. Well, good morning. Good morning. So once again, this feast of Joseph, it gives us the opportunity to step back from the usual routine to recall the reason why the Sisters of St. Joseph exist, to recall our mission. And we have said numerous times now that the congregation exists to foster unity. That's the mission. The unity that has been God's plan, God's dream from the very beginning of all time. And we desire to be part of the movement that unites rather than divides. To be part of the movement that builds up rather than tears down. But I think, even as Sister Ann alluded to, even more this day, it gives us the opportunity to remember that, in fact, all of us are called to be part of that movement that is to build up rather than tear down. We're all called to be part of the movement that is bringing all into one. That's why God made us to be creatures who can't help but want to be in relationship. It's just simply built into who we are. So by our human nature, we are really called into life-giving relationships. We're designed to be connected. So each and every one of us here is called to live and work in ways that foster life and goodness and wholeness. And so with just that much being said, for now, we're going to turn our attention to the opening prayer together. There's a phrase on the front cover, active inclusive love, that I'm going to come back to later, all right? So let's just go to the inside, and let me just say that once we take a few minutes to settle in, I'll begin with prayer, and if you could just respond wherever you see the bold print. And then we have two people that will read our passage from Matthew, the Gospel. After the Gospel, we'll pause for just a few minutes of quiet. You might think about those two questions that are posed there. And then I'll begin to lead us into the intercessory prayer. And if maybe we could just sort of, if from this camera over, we'll be side one. And then we'll alternate side two, all right? And there's a piece we say together at the end, and then the closing song will be up here on the screen, okay? So let's just take a moment to, first of all, let go put aside all the tasks that are waiting for us, to just let them go to the best of our ability. Become aware of the people in this room, to recognize that we only have the present moment. And that we are breathing with the breath of God. And so we pray. Creating God who births the world.
Breathe your life into us now.
Redeemer God who comes into our midst as light for the world.
Illumine our way.
Indwelling Spirit who permeates the world, weaving all into one.
Fill and overflow in us.
Take your candle. Go light your world. Take your candle. Go light your world. When we each bring light into our corner of the world, wherever it is, that's when we're really doing the work of unity. That's when we're being part of this movement that's building up rather than tearing down. So to help us reflect on this very simple but profound truth, I invited several people to join us today to share some of their stories with us. I could have invited any number of you who are here in this room today, but for this year, I've invited some. Maybe you'll get invited another year, who knows? But their names were on the flyers that have been hanging up around here. Sister Peg Fleming, who is known. Carolyn Jenkins, Mary Vanderhoof.
Yay,
So see the face, okay, good. And Clayton Smith. And Pat Harrington's name was on the flyer too, but Pat actually got an attack of gallbladder attack over the weekend, so Pat will not be with us this evening. So I'll give a little bit of an introduction to each person as they're ready to share some of their story, and then I'm just simply going to get it out of the way. So I'm going to just start with Sister Peg Fleming. So Peg is no stranger to those of us who have been around a long time. Peg's official ministries have included education for many years in our own college. She has served time. has served on our general council and as president of the congregation. In the last 17 years, Peg has been, along with Judy, at the Welcome Center, our wonderful ministry of welcome and support those newcomers to our country. So when I invited Peg to be with us this morning, I simply said to her, tell us what you learned from a life of living this, you know, of building up a sense of unity. What have you learned? What does it take? What are the stories of your life taught you? And that's it. So Peg is going to do that for us.
I'm going to start in the beginning. My father was one of 10, and my mother was one of 9. And my mother miscarried, and I had a brother who died before I was born. And then I came along, an only child. My parents, I don't think, knew any only children, because they came from large families. But they wanted me to be able to get along. So I joined the Brownies, the Girl Scouts. I went away to camp, summer camp. I went away to college, and I was trying to get along. I grew up in Maplewood, New Jersey, which is a very Protestant town. So being a Catholic was a minority. My 2 best friends were Protestant. One was a Methodist, and the other one was a Presbyterian. I went to CCD faithfully because I went to public school, but at CCD we didn't talk about the Bible in those days. This is the 40s. But my Protestant friends went to Bible school, and I loved their Bible stories. When I was in college, Sister Helen DeSales told Dot Hennessy, "Watch out for that Margaret Fleming. She has definite Protestant leanings." Which can be true. In high school and college, all my life I loved sports. But in high school and college, I began team sports, especially in high school. And college, I was on the basketball team, tennis team, archery team. So I knew what it was to be a team player. Nobody wins a game by himself or herself. We've seen that over these weekends in the NCAA. It's the team that wins. I had a number of jobs in the summertime. One was at Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, and there was one other girl, besides me, who was a part-time person. All the others were full-time ladies. And I'll tell you, working at that place with all those ladies, I learned more stuff about life than my mother and aunts never told me. One of the other girl who was there with me was a Jewish girl. She came to my house. I went to her house. I never liked Jewish food then, and I don't like it now, but I had to eat it. I went to her house. I entered the Sisters of St. Joseph in 1956, and life in the convent was very different then. I'm looking at Roberta Archibald. We went through a lot together in the early 60s. We didn't have cable TV. In those days, newspapers were rather restricted, so I really didn't know a lot that was going on. I was too busy preparing for my classes and teaching. So in 1968, when I went to Chestnut Hill College, I was not really aware of the Vietnam War. I knew there was a war going on, but I really didn't know much about it. But when I got to the college, I met girls whose fathers, brothers, sisters, boyfriends were in Vietnam. And all of a sudden, the Vietnam War became very close to me. There were very difficult days in 1968 and the early 70s. We had Kent State, where students were killed, and we had students who wanted to participate more in the life of the college. That was true at Chestnut Hill College. We had sit-ins. We postponed Christmas. There's been a tradition at Chestnut Hill College for the seniors to decorate the college. We didn't decorate it. We bought, in the foyer of the college, the foyer hall, there was a 2-foot scrawny Christmas tree. And the students said, "We are not decorating until the war is over." It was pretty dramatic, and some of the faculty weren't happy that we weren't decorating, but that was the case. In those days, because of the college unrest in many places, it was difficult as an administrator to hold the line between what the students demanded, which I knew they were right, and also the administration, which is always a little slow to respond. However, we made it through somehow, and the college is doing very well now. In 1979, I became a member of the General Council here at Chestnut Hill College, and in those days we were very busy between 79 and 89 withdrawing from a number of elementary schools. G. Bell will attest to that. So I thought I should get a little outside experience besides that interior council work. So I joined with other sisters and people from St. Thomas of White Marsh to teach at Montgomery County Community College. Prison. Montgomery, not the college, the prison. And I taught there for 7 years, GED, math preparation. I learned a lot from those prisoners, those inmates. I knew people who went to college, I knew doctors, I knew lawyers. They didn't know anybody who went to high school, but they knew every prison in Pennsylvania, what went on there, what was good, what was bad. I learned a lot from them and a whole different culture to which I had not ever been exposed. While I was in Montgomery County Prison, I had a conversion experience. Some of you might remember the Plowshares 8. They spilled blood on the machines at GE, and they were sent, the three of them, Phil Berrigan, John Shushard, and Bill Talbot, were sentenced to Montgomery County Prison. I used to watch them pace up and down the yard. The three of them were in the same cell, but they began to be active in helping the inmates. They complained about the food, they complained about the hours, and their sentence got reduced, till finally they got kicked out of prison. And that never made the paper. But they had locked down the prison for 3 days because the inmates were going crazy. Because the guards actually had to bundle up their stuff, put it in a bag, carry the three of them out, throw them out the front door, and lock it. The prison went crazy. But as I looked at those men and saw what they were protesting, when they came out of prison, they had rallies. And I went to some of those rallies. And I realized that nuclear power is good in some places, but nuclear warfare is not. My father became a naturalized citizen on the first day he could. So he thought America was the best place in the world. The government was right or wrong, the government was right. So I had that same thing. The government's telling us this, it has to be right. But it wasn't. So I had a whole different appreciation of how different it was if you were protesting the war. Some of us went to New York City to protest the nuclear arms race, and we marched right behind the monks from Weston Priory. However, we had to go to the bathroom, so we went into Leona Helmsley, one of her hotel, into the ladies' room there, because you know you can always go to the ladies' room right off the lobby in any hotel. All of a sudden, the manager was there, and the poor lady who was the monitor of the ladies' room, the manager said to her, "Get those people out of here, and don't let any more of those people in here." Well, it was the first time I became one of those people. And we got kicked out of the hotel.
Hey, can I ask you a question right there?
Sure.
What did it feel like to be one of those people?
Well, I was really happy. I knew I was on the right side.
What do you mean by that?
I mean that I felt that what we were doing in New York City, protesting nuclear war, I thought that was the right thing to do. So I was happy to be one of those people, as opposed to the rich people who were in the hotel who didn't give anything about the war. Montgomery County Prison closed because there was a new prison built. And so the new prison had a person in charge of volunteers. So we could no longer volunteer for our GED classes. So I decided I would join the Philadelphia AIDS Task Force. I became a buddy to many men who had AIDS, persons with AIDS. In those days, the late 70s, early 80s, AIDS was a terminal illness. So I saw some of my buddies die. We were fortunate to be able to open our house at Cape May, to have some persons with AIDS come there. And there was only one person that I knew who came back a second year. All the others had died. But they were so grateful to be there. Some of them couldn't even get out of bed. But the staff took care of them and wheeled them out to look at the ocean and breathe the fresh air. It was a great gift that we were able to do. Kathleen Keene and I went to a workshop, a weekend workshop. It was titled, How to Help Persons Dealing with Persons with AIDS. It turned out Kathleen Keene and I were the only two straight persons there. I learned a lot that weekend from the gay men and lesbian women who were there and the struggles they had. This goes back before homosexuality was accepted. But I learned so much from them and the struggles they had with their families. It was really heartbreaking, really. In 1999, I was missioned to the Dreamcatcher, which was a literacy program established by the Sisters of St. Joseph. Originally, it was to help the people of Philadelphia get their GED. But those people didn't show up. Immigrants saw literacy and they came. In 2000, a woman came to, at that time we began teaching immigrants at St. Michael's and Ascension, and this woman came to Ascension. Were any of you at the villa yesterday? Yes. Well, you met that woman, Rosa Garcia. Well, Rosa didn't speak English, but she crossed the Rio Grande with her 2 children in tubes, and to meet her husband, really, in the United States. And she wound up in Philadelphia in my class. Now, Rosa is paying for a house. She owns a car. The 2 little kids, 4 and 2. The 4-year-old is now a junior at Chestnut Hill College on the dean's list. The 2-year-old is now in Philadelphia Community College. And if you were at the villa yesterday, you saw little Manny. He's in 4th grade at Holy Innocents. Rosa is our administrative assistant, and she is a treasure. But she's just one of the many stories that we have from our wonderful immigrants who love this country so much. Usually we have about 25 countries represented at the Welcome Center. We have 242 students who are now citizens of this country, and they love being here. They are wonderful people, and we love having them. It's such a great joy for me to be able to teach there. Eileen Marnian, our founder of the Welcome Center, and it does wonderful work and supports so many people. I think that's enough.
Before you go, I want to ask you one more question, all right? So all of those experiences,
If you were to sum them up and say, what did you learn, one thing from all of those experiences? It feels like to me there's a huge thread, several threads running through all of those.
I'd say I learned how to accept people who are not like me.
As you listened to just the stories of Peg's life, what did you hear about what it takes to be a presence that learns from the stories of other people's lives? What does it take to be that kind of a presence? Just think about that for a minute. What does it take, as you listen, to be the kind of person who can learn from others. And just buzz about that for like 2 minutes at your table, that's all.
Submission.
Submission, what do you mean by that, Clayton?
It's not about you. It's not about you or your comfort. It's
Right.
about acceptance.
Acceptance of the other for who they are.
Yep.
Something else? Yes, Ellie?
Openness.
Openness. Say a little more about that. What do you mean by openness?
To learn from others.
The openness to learn from others, which presumes they've got something to teach you. Yes, yes.
Because
To
our
learn.
neighbor as ourselves, so to love ourselves with all our, and accept our own weaknesses and our own strengths.
Yes.
And that we do need all the words.
Right, to accept ourselves for who we are, too, in relationship to the other. Yeah. Eileen.
Could I just add something to Peg's
Yes.
story? Because
Yes.
I think this story captures Peg, is her willingness to put herself in situations, you know. And one story comes to mind early on in the Welcome Center. I think Peg was afraid that if Homeland Security came, we might be arrested without her. So she would say, if anybody comes, you know, to take you, call us and we'll come down. So one day, it never happened before or after that, when the Homeland Security guard appeared just parked in front of the Welcome Center. And we were like, oh my gosh, what do you think's happening? So I said, well, I'll go out and talk to him, but you better call Peg, because I think this could be our moment. So Peg and Judy ran down from Ascension. We were all, more able-bodied then, we were able to. And by that time, the guy was very disinterested in us, but it was just the juxtaposition of, why would he stop here? This must be, us. But Peg didn't want to miss an opportunity to go to prison.
Now that's unity. Hanging together, literally. That's great. Yeah, and what strikes me too as I listen to Peg, that's the last comment I'll make, unless you want to add something, is that every single experience evidently said something to Peg about being open to the other from the time she was this child with her Protestant friends. Every one of those life experiences shaped Peg into being the presence, the wonderful unioning presence that she is today and has been all these years. That's no less true for all of us. Each and every one of us, every day, are presented with opportunities of being shaped and formed by the people we meet, by the circumstances we find ourselves in. So what have those circumstances shaped us into? How are we being shaped? How are we shaping one another? So just a question to hang out there. All right? Want to move on?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
All right. So Pat Harrington was going to be the next person this morning. And let me just say this. Pat Harrington, Carolyn Jenkins, Mary Vanderhoof are all associates of the Sisters of St. Joseph, as is Kerry Ruzak. Very briefly, for those who might not really know what an associate is, associates are men and women who share a particular affinity with the Sisters of St. Joseph because they feel just as drawn to live and work in ways that foster unity as we sisters do. Associates commit themselves to living this mission of unity and all that that implies in the everyday circumstances of their lives, wherever they find themselves, in the relationships of their lives. They are committed to being in relationship with others in ways that are inclusive and caring, and in ways that stimulate love and unity. There are nearly 700 associates connected to the Philadelphia Sisters of St. Joseph. So almost as many sister members. So imagine how many associates there are throughout the United States, because wherever there are Sisters of St. Joseph, there are associates. Imagine how many associates there are around the world. So that's a pretty good network. So, while Pat could not be here, she sent me a story that she was going to begin with today. I'm just going to use that story. It's the only part of what she was going to say. But I think it has something to say to us today. It's a story that really comes from the Mideastern tradition. It's an ancient story in the Mideastern tradition, but the truth is, it could be from any tradition. And the story goes like this. As the old man sat motionless on his deathbed, he felt the presence of his nearby son and the feeling that his time was almost over. On his mind were a few words of wisdom that he wanted to share with his son, and so the son who he felt he would never see again. And so the old man gathered his last bit of strength and motioned to his son to come close. When his son was at his side, the old man slowly leaned over, put his hand on his son's shoulder, and said, "Son, when I was a young man about your age, I set out on a mission to change the world. As time passed, I found that the world, with all its problems, was too big for one man to change. So I changed my focus and set out to change our country. As time passed, I could not change our country with all its problems. I changed my focus again and decided to change our state. When this didn't work, I decided to change our city. But the problems of our city and state were too much for one man to handle. So I decided to just try and change our neighborhood. Son, as you know, there are too many problems in our neighborhood for one man to solve. Now, as I lay on my deathbed, I have come to the realization that if I would have just set out to change myself, that would have changed our home, which would have had an effect on our neighborhood. The change in our neighborhood would have had an effect on our city. This would have had an effect on our state, which would have in fact helped change our country. Changing our country would have brought forth a change in the world." Just sit with that story for a minute and let it speak to you.